Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello and welcome to James Bond Radio. This week we are turning it over to the JBR family for the first time in a while, actually. This is where we have the voicemail, 90-second voicemail reviews of The World Is Not Enough. We're stitching them all together and you can listen to what the JBR family think of The World Is Not Enough. You've listened to Chris and I's thoughts on The World Is Not Enough. Now it's the time to hear what everybody else thinks. So are you excited for that, Chris?
Yes, I am, Tommy. Yes, I am. Because it's been a long while for the old listener reviews. Obviously, we always like to hear those absolutely love them and those absolutely hate them, and everyone in between. But particularly, there's a Bond film out there for everyone. We always say it, and I really want to hear those that it's right up there for them. You know, The World Is Not Enough. They love it and can't get enough of it.
Yeah, stuff. All right then. Without any further ado, should we crack on?
Let's do it. Let's have a listen.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Lucy.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Hello, this. My name is Lorenzo Grant, and this is my voice message for my favorite film, The World Is Not Enough. What do I like about it? One, I love the pre-title sequence, the boat chase. I love the pre-title sequence, the double whammy of the banker scene in the boat chase is one of my favorite scenes in the film. I love all the action sequences in the film, like the Parahot sequence. I love the bunker scene, shootout scene. I love the carry-out factory scene. I love the climax action scene at the end of the film. What else I like about it? I love David Arnold's scores. Soundtrack in this film is one of my favorite scores in the series. Love the music in this film. Very great. Four, I love Electric King. Sophie Marceau does a great job being the Bond girl, aka Bond villain in this film. I think she does a great job playing the villain very well. She does a fantastic job, and her and Bond relationship in this film is very great in this film, and her dynamic turning on everybody being the villain is really interesting. My opinions about Renard, he's a very interesting character. Give him a great build up, give him a great build up, great gimmick, but he's very wasted in this film. Very wasted. I feel like he could have been a very
The World Is Not Enough is one of my least watched films. I think it's had a lot of potential, and there's a lot of the intrigue of the setup was more interesting than a lot of the payoff, in my opinion. I really like the idea of Renard. I really like the idea of Electra King, who I have to say does have really great chemistry with Pierce Brosnan, has a really interesting backstory and motivation to why she's evil, but it just never quite comes together for me in a satisfactory way. I find a lot of the direction and the action set pieces are a little bit lacking in oomph. I'm not sure if Michael Apted or the visual style of the cinematography is quite to my liking. I think there's some decent performances. I really like Robbie Coltrane, who's sort of hamming it up a little bit more. And I think Pierce Brosnan gives a really solid performance, but it seems to be slightly, in my opinion, stuck between trying to be a bit cheesy and wink at camera Christmas Jones stuff, but also trying to be gritty, and Electra King having this sort of quite dark backstory, manipulating people. And to me, those things don't quite gel.
Hi guys, it's Gordon Webster from Station G Glasgow here, first time caller, fairly new listener. I enjoyed The World's Not Enough. I'm just leaving my 90-second review. I think it's got a more believable plot than a lot of the films, especially say Die Another Day. There's still something missing though, but I do like it. I think Pierce Brosnan's really good, and he can be cold at times. I wonder, did he really need to kill Davidoff? I don't know. I think Electra's really good. I love his scenes and dialogue with her. great the fact that she turns on Bond in MI6. I love the Majesty's references, especially that slimy reference to Tracy and the fact that Bond's kind of hurt by it. I love the title, obviously, it's a coat of arms from that film as well. Bob Carlyle, great dynamic actor who does well in this, and he's a really sound guy in real life. He comes into my brother's work, as does Robbie Coltrane. I think Zukovsky's pretty good in this, not as good as Goldeneye, where I preferred the fact in that he was a darker kind of underworld character. And this he's used more as a sort of comedy buffoon, really. But Christmas Jones, she's not actually as bad as you guys make out, by the way. She's not as bad as playing O'Toole. I think that could have been better cast, but music as well is pretty good by David Arnold, not as good as Tomorrow Never Dies, though. Not so keen the James Bond line in the elevator. Should have left that out, but entertaining film. Great to see JBR's continue as well. Love the podcast. Keep up the great work, guys. Cheers.
Hello all, Darren Bithell here with my 90-second review of Twine. Welcome back, Chris, first of all. I may be swimming against the tide, but I think The World Is Not Enough is my favourite Bond film, the favourite Brosnan Bond film, I hasten to add. Goldeneye, after watching it back recently, I think it's past its sell-by date, and Tomorrow Never Dies, I think is rather thin and undercooked. Brosnan, I believe, is his most assured in the role of Bond in this film, and he appears to be more interested in the role in this film. It's largely thanks, I think, to Electra King. The character is absolutely brilliant throughout this film. Renard had the potential of being up there as one of the best Bond villains of the whole series, but I think it was a missed opportunity as a whole. Other highlights, Desmond Last Stand as Q is very poignant. The pre-title sequence is up there with one of the very best in the whole series. I think as a whole the story is more rounded and much more character-driven. And with the strength of the characters, obviously, that helped a lot. The weaknesses, I think the one-liners are very hit and miss. The action sequences are rather stylized and blunt. For Christmas Jones, she doesn't make me a Jehovah's Witness, but she doesn't make me wish that Christmas was every day of the year. Once a year is enough. I remember at the time this was a step in the right direction, and it was all boding well for the 40th anniversary Bond film.
Hey, Tom and Chris, this is Drew in St. Louis, Missouri with my 90-second World Is Not Enough review. First of all, great to hear you guys reviewing the films again. You had me worried a few months ago. This is one of my favorites. A few months ago, I watched every film and redid my Bond ranking. And believe it or not, this came in at number 10. I know it has a bunch of problems, but it's just entertaining. Pierce is great as Bond. I totally agree with you guys that Sophie Marceau killed it as Electra. She brings that sexual energy, that captivating look. I totally agree with you guys on that. It has for me what is an all-time classic Bond moment that's up there with anything Sean Connery did or Daniel Craig, which is the "you couldn't kill me, you'd miss me. Pop, I never miss." That's a top 10 all-time Bond moment for me. I mean, it's just mixes everything about Bond into one encapsulated moment. Pierce is great. He just got short shrift on his films, but I think this is for sure his second best film, and it's my 10th favorite Bond film.
Hi, JBR. This is Frank McNeely from Tacoma, Washington, calling in with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. This movie is a mixed bag for me because there are very good things, but also some obvious flaws. For what's good for me is the pre-title sequence, specifically the boat chase, is very good. In terms of his performance as Bond, I think this is one of Pierce's stronger performances, even though it's not necessarily his best film. I think that David Arnold's score, while maybe not his best, is also strong, especially the submarine cue. When Bond is boarding the sub, it just really intensifies that whole sequence. I also really like Sophie Marceau as Electra King. Electra King was very well written, and Sophie Marceau gave such an incredible performance. And it was really cool that they tried to do something new by making her the villain in the twist. So, in terms of flaws, I really don't like how underutilized the BMW Z8 was. That's a very powerful car, and I feel like there could have been like a really intense car chase or something where more of the gadgets were used in that car. I mean, even if it was like the beverage cup holder that was used, I mean, that might have provided some humor. Other flaws, Denise Richards and Robert Carlyle were maybe miscast as Christmas Jones and Renard, or maybe those characters just need to be more well written. Can't wait for the Die Another Day review. See you guys.
Chase Sadowski here for James Bond Classified with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. Before I start, I do have to say, welcome back, Chris. I was so happy to hear that Chris is back. You two together are just Bond magic. Anyway, the pre-title sequence, one of my all-time favorites. I just love it. I love Pierce. Looks so good in this movie. He seems so at ease playing Bond. And he just kind of flows through the whole thing. I thought Sophie Marceau was amazing, beautiful, gorgeous. You could believe how everyone is going to fall in love with her. Renard, I thought it was very interesting how he doesn't feel any pain, and yet he feels the pain of not feeling the pain of being with Elektra, if that makes any sense. I thought Q leaving was very sad, very poignant. I'm glad they got that in. There were some corny lines in there. Christmas Jones, I've seen this movie so many times. I'm okay with it, but maybe a young Rachel Weisz would have been better. Anyway, thanks so much for you guys for doing this. Chris, so happy that you're back, and carry on. Bye.
Hey, JBR family. This is Brian calling from the States with my thoughts on The World Is Not Enough. When this movie originally came out, I think I was a sophomore in college, and I was like, you know what? Is this movie popular? It's not for me. I was kind of going through my dickhead period. Thought it was too cool when it came to Bond. I thought the movies had come kind of cheesy, and they were beneath my sophisticated sensibilities. Yeah, I was a prick. I think most of us have probably gone through some similar phase. But I've actually, over the years, I've kind of liked this movie because I think there's a lot to like about it. Sophie Marceau, wow, she's fantastic. The opening sequence, while it's long, is great. The song is good. Like you guys said in the pod, the middle sections, some of it I can take or leave. Like especially the way Pierce says Bond, James Bond during the middle of the action sequence. It makes absolutely no sense. But overall, I dig this movie. I think it's actually my second favorite Pierce movie behind Tomorrow Never Dies. Thanks. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to hear what everyone else has to say.
Hello, James Bond Radio. Kyle Barbeau, your man from New York, here with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. In short, I love it. I think it's one notch short of a perfect Bond film, and that one notch is a miscast Denise Richards. Her character could have been omitted entirely, and it would have been a much stronger film. That emotional punch we would have had from the Bond girl turning out to be the villain would have been even stronger. Other than that, I think everything is perfect. Pierce Brosnan's strongest performance, Judi Dench delivering one of her best as M. It's a tight plot, great action set pieces, beautiful suits on Brosnan. He's got great style. And Pierce Brosnan and Sophie Marceau have some of the best Bond and Bond girl chemistry that we've ever seen, at least since Roger Moore and Maude Adams had in Octopussy. It's a great movie. I love watching it all the time, and David Arnold's soundtrack is a work of genius. Keep up the great work. Welcome back, Chris Wright.
Hi guys, Jamie here, calling from Sweden to give my 90-second review. I really like The World Is Not Enough. It does have some flaws, but I can see past them. Pierce is my favourite Bond, and this is his kind of last Bond movie for me. I love the boat chase, and as you have already said, Elektra King is amazing. She has a real class about her. I don't mind Christmas Jones. Denise Richards' casting is very much a product of its time, as is the whole movie. The action is the same. It is of its time. At this point, we are only 3 years away from the Bourne Identity, which would change the spy genre for good. I love the return of Robbie Coltrane. I would have loved him to return. My biggest pet peeve are all the 3-button suits Bond is wearing. It is very 90s in a very Tony Blair bad way. The film has a very special place in my heart. It was a peak Pierce as Bond, and I was so into it. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work, and speak to you soon.
Hello, my name is Alicia Walker, and this is my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. When this movie first came out, I didn't love it, so I hadn't seen it in a long time. But this time around, I really enjoyed a lot of it. It has a solid gun barrel opening, Pearson glasses, yes please. I like that Spain was used as the opening setting. Moneypenny's flirting with Bond feels about right this time around. The boat chase is great, if you ignore how he's steering out of the water. I love the Q scene. His exit always brings tears to my eyes. And there's so much of the classic Bond in this movie, like Dr. Molly Warmflash, the ski scene, the casino scene, the pipeline, the submarine, his swan dive, and of course the ending. The cons on here, I don't love that M was captured, maybe just because she's a woman, and it feels like Bernard Lee or Robert Brown's M would never be in that situation in a jail cell. There's a lot of explosions for a caviar warehouse. I'm not sure how that all got in there. Denise Richards' delivery of lines can be pretty rough, but I don't even mind that too much anymore. She does all right. She helps Bond more than she impedes him, and she has better chemistry with Pierce than Michelle Yeoh did in the last movie. It's not my top 10, but it's still a fun movie, and it's my second favorite Pierce Bond movie after GoldenEye. Thanks for the opportunity to leave a review. Bye!
Hi, this is Gavin Ludlow Thompson, Station W Westminster, also calling on behalf of my brother Guy, Station T Taunton, who wants to say this is his favourite James Bond film, particularly for three scenes: the boat chase, the bunker sequence, and the casino scene. And thanks to you, Chris, for pointing out the name of the casino, which I'd never noticed before, L'Or Noir, or Black Gold. My comment is I like these Brosnan films because I noticed that they all have scenes where people smash through glass windows. In this particular film, Bond breaks out of the bank in Bilbao with a suitcase through a window, then to meet a dog down in the street below in front of the Guggenheim Museum. In GoldenEye, he smashes his way out of the archive in Russia, in St. Petersburg, through a glass window. Die Another Day, Zhao breaks out of the Cuban clinic through a window, and finally in Tomorrow Never Dies, Bond and Wei Lin break into the Carver building, having sliced their way through a banner portraying the face of Carver. Incidentally, it might have been a good line for Bond to have said at that stage, well, that certainly wiped the smile off his face. What do you think? Keep up the good work, take care, and bye!
Hi, Tom and Chris. Joachim from Belgium here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Suitably, The World Is Not Enough was my very first Bond film. I suppose that's why I've always kept a nostalgic feeling towards this film. Now, it admittedly has some flaws, but on the other hand, I think it has an interesting plot. Elektra's a great villain, Zukovsky is a hilarious ally, and the Z8 is the only BMW that comes close to being a proper Bond car. I also think the MI6 crew is stellar here. An expanded role of M, both Robinson and Tanner present, Moneypenny is in top form, Warmflash is there as well, and we get that classic Q scene, which is both funny and emotional. I never had a problem with Christmas either. She's not a plausible nuclear scientist, but she has other things going for her. And at the very least, she is never a helpless damsel in distress, like for instance Stacy in A View to a Kill. My biggest complaint would be Renate, who I never quite liked that much. As this one sits near the bottom of most rankings, I do consider it somewhat underrated. Small piece of trivia, by the way. Do you guys think Elektra's name was inspired by the Elektra complex in Neo-Freudian psychology? I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Cheers, fellas. Looking forward to the Die Another Day review.
Hey JBR, this is Trevor in Madrid, Spain. I was recently in Bilbao and really got a kick out of walking on the street outside of the Guggenheim where The World Is Not Enough starts. That was a real special trip for me. I've loved your reviews of this movie. It was the movie that I sort of grew up with, the first Bond film that I saw in theaters. And I'm biased, but I think the duo of Denise Richards and Sophie Marceau, I think they're the two most beautiful Bond girls ever. And they happen to be in the same film. From your reviews, I thought I'd mention, you pointed out how unrealistic it would be for Elektra King to have been sexually inexperienced. But I think that reference in the movie comes at a point when Bond is saying that she was sexually inexperienced when she encountered Renard. And that's part of how she fell in love with him. You know, she fell victim to the Stockholm syndrome because she was inexperienced at that time. Obviously, when she meets Bond, she is not. Anyway, I think The World Is Not Enough, the plot holds together better than the other Brosnan films. It just makes more sense. And so that's why it's my favorite Brosnan Bond.
Hi, Tom and Chris. This is Jack Sharman phoning in with my very first listener review. The World Is Not Enough for me is very much a mid-level Bond. There's stuff I love about it, there's stuff I'm not quite so sure about. I think it's probably Pierce's best performance in the role, as you mentioned, in quite nauseating detail at times. Electra King is absolutely one of the best Bond girls and villains wrapped up in one in the series. I love David Arnold's score most of all. I think Renard generally is a threatening villain, although I agree with what you've been saying, that it does go a little bit hot and cold. The big issue here is Christmas Jones. For me, Christmas Jones very much sums up the overall problem with the film, with the clashing tones. You have darkness, Bond shooting Electra King in the face, but then you also have the campy nature of Christmas's jokes, despite the best line in the series coming up right at the end. Overall, I think the film achieves an entertaining romp, if albeit perhaps not delivering quite what I think was the intention in places. They never quite pick a tone to go for, but overall there's a lot of fun. I love the base in the Scottish castle. I think it's one of the best locations for MI6 in the series. The Q scene tears me up every single time. I think it's just absolutely perfectly done, and although it's a shame it is a send-off for Desmond, it is a perfect one of my favourite scenes in the film. Overall, really enjoyed getting back into this film. Definitely one I'll be watching again soon. Thanks for listening to my review, guys.
Hello, this is Nick Hughes from the Rubber Channel, and here is my review of The World Is Not Enough. This movie is the closest thing in the pre-Daniel Craig era to a sequel to a previous Bond movie in the series. This movie is about Bond finally laying the ghosts of his late wife Tracy to rest. Electra King initially reminds Bond of his wife. Father is in construction, like Draco. Mixed heritage. She gambles money she doesn't have. She has a self-destructive streak. Trapped in an avalanche as well. Bond falls for her, as he did for Tracy, but then there's the betrayal. The World Is Not Enough contains layers and subtext, and it does it all without making it all seem too obvious, like in other action movies. My recommendation is to go and watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service and then The World Is Not Enough to see if you can spot the connections, because they're definitely there. Especially with Q. He tries to give advice to Bond at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but is cut off. Finally, in The World Is Not Enough, he finally manages to do so in his last ever appearance. The two movies are connected, and it's a triumph of the writers and of Brosnan's very subtle performance not telegraphing it too much. I can't recommend this film enough.
Hello guys, Ollie from Oxford here with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. 1999 was the year in which I became a Bond fan. From the spring to the late summer, ITV ran their 00 Heaven season, the first time the Bond films had been shown in consecutive order, and I ate them all up just in time for Twine. The pre-titles are of course very good, overlong, but very good. I'm not sure what kind of fishing requires torpedoes, but I'm sure Q would have had a lot of fun in his retirement. I agree that the first third of the film sets up the premise just fine. All the Scottish castle scenes and Desmond's final speech are handled very well indeed. Snow Bond is always welcome, although I think this is about the weakest in the series. Even Rog and the Beach Boys are better. Sitting in the cinema back then, I do recall thinking that we were getting towards the climax when we got to the silo sequence. The pacing is off. There's something disjointed about the film. That said, there's a lot here that's good. Sophie Marceau is gorgeous. You thoroughly believe the relationship with Bond. Denise Richards, for me, doesn't bring the film down too much. You're probably right that Renard doesn't have enough to do, but I think Robert Carlyle does well with what's been given. It was once my favourite Brosnan. It's just in second place now. They were headed in the right direction with this, so what went wrong? No Time to Die looks like a real humdinger. Bye!
Hey JBR,
Justin from Los Angeles here, Twitter handle @It'sJustinBolero, talking all things Bond. Now, when it comes to The World Is Not Enough, it's a movie I don't think that gets its due. It's Brosnan's strongest performance as James Bond, David Arnold's best score. It's the best balance between Bond theme and Arnold's style of composing, even though Tom thinks you can't use enough Bond theme, a la Tomorrow Never Dies. And the plot was something so different that we hadn't seen in the series thus far, and it had so much value that Purvis and Wade showed that when they recycled a lot of the plot elements from The World Is Not Enough into Skyfall. And you just look at it, MI6 is attacked, M is central to the plot, M is in danger, Bond gets a shoulder injury, Bond is put on inactive service, and we even have a trip to Turkey. So a lot of the origins of the Skyfall plot actually come from The World Is Not Enough. So I don't think The World Is Not Enough gets the credit that it's due. And The World Is Not Enough holds a really important place in my heart because it was the first movie I saw in the cinema for a Bond film. And I still get goosebumps seeing the boat chase down the Thames because I still put myself in that seat as a 10-year-old, watching that Bond film with my family in the cinema. So, and that was the movie that put me as a lifelong James Bond fan. So I'm with Calvin Dyson in saying it's one of my top 5 Bond films. But yeah, The World Is Not Enough, great Bond film, and it really deserves more credit.
Hi, Tom and Chris. It's Don from the Netherlands. First of all, it's wonderful to hear the both of you on JBR again. Second, since I only have 90 seconds to review The World Is Not Enough, let me just say that I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Parts of it are perhaps somewhat generic, or some might even say underwhelming, but the film in its entirety is solid Bond, with unique locations, excellent characters, and Pierce really nails the role. The return of Robbie Coltrane as Valentin Zukovsky is a highlight, as is David Arnold as the composer with an excellent score. The film will always be remembered as being Desmond Llewellyn's final outing as Q. What a legend. Now, when I was in London in 2018, I went on a speedboat tour on the Thames, passing the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, and all the way to the Millennium Dome and beyond. And that was absolutely amazing. The James Bond theme was through the speakers, and I felt like James Bond. Now, finally, my friends and I recently discussed The World Is Not Enough, and while Electra King was being compared to high cuisine, the ultimate meal, poor Christmas Jones was just a hamburger. But I have to confess, quite often, I'm in the mood for a hamburger.
Hello, Matt Robenheimer here, with a few words about The World Is Not Enough. This is a film that came out when I was 13 years old, and I was just starting to become a big James Bond fan at the time. I was a big fan of Pierce Brosnan, and I enjoyed this movie a lot. It had some great action, but it never quite lived up to GoldenEye, which was probably my favorite film at the time. Nonetheless, I think it's stood up over the years as a pretty good all-round James Bond movie. One of the big strengths, of course, is Electra King, who I think brings a very interesting and nuanced performance in the film, and an interesting twist with the main villain being a woman, and also a character that Bond sort of falls in love with to some extent during the course of the film. And I still think the action in the film is pretty good. The locations are good. I think the cinematography and the look of the film has a kind of gritty realism to it, which I quite like for the most part. But one of the things that lets the film down a bit, I think, is some of the dialogue is a bit cheesy. Of course, Denise Richards, I think, is miscasting in the role of Christmas Jones. I wish that whole character could have panned out a bit differently. I think it would do a lot to enhance the film overall. But I think it's a solid Bond movie, probably my second favorite Pierce Brosnan film. Yeah, and a good one all round.
Okay, guys. I think what's interesting, I love the review, by the way, is that The World Is Not Enough is basically a template for what we got with Daniel Craig's era. To the extent that Daniel Craig era is sort of The World Is Not Enough done right. Insofar as Electra is kind of where they went with Vesper. And obviously the attack on MI6 is done a little bit more tastefully, I think, in Skyfall, perhaps. And obviously the ultimate destruction of the building that you see in Spectre. And I think what's also interesting is you see a lot of these strands of rumor that came about that sort of made their way into the script and sort of didn't. So there were rumors of Bond taking on his own illegitimate son was one. That was interesting. There was going to be Bond in the Millennium Dome at the end, as sort of the end MacGuffin, with Zukovsky kind of a bit more implicated, not necessarily the big bad, and having a fight at the end with Renard atop the Millennium Dome and saving a bunch of dignitaries, which I think probably could have worked better. And there was something about a stash of oil being discovered and sort of the rights for it, kind of a la Jurassic Park or something like that. So the opening sequence would have been all the oil being found. Agree on Christmas, but it was of its time. And this is it's a third way Bond. It's another one that kept the franchise afloat. And hey, it's not Die Another Day. I have very fond memories of it. I'm very fond of it. Great review, guys. Keep up the great work. Bye now.
This is Adrian Grice, a long-time listener of JBR, and here's my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. This is, I think, Pierce Brosnan's best Bond film, and it's very underrated. I just love the story. I just love the drama. And to say that this was Neil Purvis's and Robert Wade's first Bond film, I think they took great risks by changing the formula and introducing a new female villain, which Bond kind of started falling for, and she didn't turn out the way we kind of hoped. The action scenes are probably a little bit TV movie-esque, but otherwise, it's such a strong story, and as I say, Brosnan is at his best. But for some reason, it just didn't seem to kind of hit the mark for many fans and cinema goers. David Arnold, brilliant score. But yeah, overall, Christmas Jones, I know she seems to get a lot of stick, but the thing is, she's not a Fleming character, so I don't know what you can compare her to. Renard, Robert Carlyle, brilliant henchman, absolutely fantastic, and overall, great movie. That pre-title sequence down in London with the boat chase, fantastic. But yeah, this for me was my second Bond film I've seen at the cinema, and it was just mind-blowing. The World's Not Enough, fucking brilliant, absolutely love it. Okay, cheerio.
If she is a nuclear physicist, then I am Mickey Mouse!
The World's Not Enough is a great Bond film. Some days I'd even say this Brosnan's best, so better than GoldenEye. Just so many things right and almost nothing wrong. The plot itself, I think, is just so well written. I love the story. I love the two villains, and Electra and Renard, and the whole psychological thing going on there. I think the ends inclusion as well, making it personal but not too personal. And the one-liners in this film are actually fantastic, I find. And then, you have all these just great dialogue moments giving a bit of insight into Bond's character as well, which you don't really get, even in Craig's films. You just don't really have anymore. Action-wise, I think it's just perfect. You have that pre-title sequence, which is my favorite. Just that moment when Q's boat just launches over that table and the music soars. It's just so great. And speaking of the music, David Arnold, the soundtrack is one of my favorite. The submarine track, it's just that one moment just before he kills Renard when the music is so great. I just love it. Acting-wise, I don't know why everyone hates Brosnan's acting in this film. I actually think it's one of his better performances, not his best, but it's good. I love Electra, great villain, great Bond girl. And yes, guys, I will defend Christmas Jones. You can count me in for that one. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. And I just feel like, even Zukovsky, I just love him in this film. And I think just altogether, everything comes and makes this great Bond film.
I like The World Is Not Enough, although it has its flaws. Apart from the amazing pre-titles, the action set pieces fall a bit flat to me, and I'm also not a big fan of Renard. He kind of breaks from this tradition of stylish and classy villains, and you just don't see him suit up and eat dinner with Bond while explaining his evil world domination plans to him. But then again, Electra totally makes up for that, because she's stylish, beautiful, and more in the line of those classic Bond villains like Scaramanga, Goldfinger, etc. The relevance and value of oil as a resource seems timeless, which is why the overall plot doesn't really feel dated at all. Christmas Jones's acting is very wooden, but to be fair,
so am I when she's around. Oh, and I just love Brosnan's outfit when he does the dive jump from the Maiden's Tower. I just love Pierce in general. What else? The Q scene is really touching, although like the dialogue with the two things he's always been trying to teach Bond feels a bit weird to me because he never actually said those two things to him before. I feel like they could have come up with something better. Yeah, signing off. From Hamburg.
Hello, this is Mark from Manchester, and apparently the world is not enough. Well, after Brexit, I'll pretty much take anywhere. So Michael Apted directs, typically associated with more dramatic kind of movies, and I think this was the film where they tried to balance drama and action. Particularly early on, I think they get it pretty much right. There's some scenes where the camera just lingers on Pierce and it just captures little reactions, which I think is fantastic. Daniel Kleinman, fantastic as ever. The music, I absolutely love Garbage's theme. I had the chance to see him a couple of years ago and I foolishly turned it down. I think David Arnold really became his own. I think his Tomorrow Never Dies score is one of his best, but it does recycle a lot of motifs from the older films. This is pure Arnold. In terms of some of the cast, I don't know what they were doing with Denise Richards. I feel like they were going for a bit of a Lara Croft vibe, but it didn't really work for me. I'd prefer to see like a Julianne Moore in that kind of role. However, Sophie Marceau, I was a 14-year-old boy when this movie came out, and she was my cup of tea. In terms of the baddie, Robert Carlyle, a brilliant actor, but I always associate him with that brilliant role in Cracker and playing, I think it's Begbie in Trainspotting. I don't think he had really enough time to shine. In comparison, after this, we got Die Another Day, which could have destroyed all of reality and all of time and space. So I would argue this is one of Pierce's best films. Worth checking out again if you've not seen it for a while, particularly for Sophie Marceau.
Hi Tom, Chris, how's it going? Sean O'Hare here, leaving a 90-second review for The World Is Not Enough. First off, welcome back, Chris. Great to hear you back on James Bond Radio. I really enjoyed the film, lads. This is the first Bond film that I've seen in the cinema. It has gone down slightly over the years for me, but it's still up there. Brosnan, once again, is brilliant in this film, following on from GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. He's brilliant on screen, probably my favourite Bond. Opening sequence, lads, one of the best. Yes, one of the best ever. The Bond score as well is excellent from David Arnold, especially the expanded version that came out there about last year. The ski sequence for me is a bit slow. It's as if the cameras are too far away, to be honest, unlike the Fear Eyes Only and Her Majesty's, where you're right on top of the action. It's too far away, a bit distant for myself. I really like the bunker sequence. I think it's excellent. Yeah, totally get your point about Christmas Jones. Yes, it's just one of them ones. What do you do? Electra King, excellent. Brilliant casting for Sophie Marceau. Renard, yes, he's a good villain, but yes, probably again totally underused. Get your point about the Caviar Factory. Yeah, it is a wee bit sort of in the studio, but I actually really enjoyed the submarine sequence. I thought it was excellent. Look, overall, yes, really enjoy the film. Has gone down slightly over the years for me, but here Brosnan's the best. Lads, all the best. Good to talk to you. Bye now.
Hello, JBR family. Dennis James Harden from upstate New York with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough, the third outing with Pierce Brosnan as Bond. Actually, for the longest time, it was my favorite Brosnan Bond film. I love the pre-credit sequence, Cigar Girl, Maria Grazia Cucinotta, Robert Carlyle. Actually, Renard isn't that bad of a villain. He kind of gets a lot of flack, but I think he's all right, as well as the wonderful Sophie as Electra King. It's got some wonderful Judi Dench moments. It's probably my favorite David Arnold score, actually, of the 5 scores that he did, David Arnold. So there's a lot to love about it. But at the same time, the last few times I've watched it, I feel like I almost want to pop in another Bond movie. So it hasn't been holding my interest quite as well as it did when it came out. So I go back and forth on whether that or GoldenEye is my favorite Brosnan film. Anyway, looking forward to No Time to Die right around the corner. Take care.
Hi, Tom, Chris, and the JBR family. This is Jed from Singapore with my review of The World Is Not Enough. I think The World Is Not Enough is the quintessential Brosnan Bond. It's not quite as over-the-top outlandish as Die Another Day, as over-the-top and outlandish as it already is. And I guess it's superficially more exciting than Tomorrow Never Dies. So for better and for worse, I'd point somebody to this as the movie that encapsulates the Brosnan Bond era. And of course, this is the final film of Desmond Llewellyn, so it will always hold a special place in my heart because of that. And to lead on from that, the Q-boat is awesome. I love the Q-boat. And the chase sequence is a little bit long in the beginning, the Millennium Dome boat sequence, but it's still a lot of fun. And I love the snowy alpine chase as well with the parasailers. And I think that this is a movie that did break ground. It is the last Bond movie of the 90s. It is a 1999 movie, and that was a very zeitgeisty for cinema as a whole. Something that's kind of interesting about this movie, I forgot who pointed it out, but the similarities between this and The Dark Knight Rises, the third Christopher Nolan Batman movie, there are quite a number of interesting similarities. I think Renard tracks to Bane, and Elektra tracks to Talia al Ghul. So that's something to chew on a little bit, and I always come back to that little nugget, whether it was intentional on Nolan's part or not. Thanks.
Aussie Kilgallen here from Perth, WA, Western Australia. The World Is Not Enough. Loved the movie. Thought it was great on release. The build up to it was terrific, and the opening scenes very, very good. The chase down the Thames with the boats, loved it. It was great fun. Pierce in top form all the way through the movie. Obviously feels comfortable in the role and made it his own at this point. I thought Electric King was absolutely brilliant casting and a very interesting villain. Didn't really see the twist coming initially. I'm hard to remember now, but I thought it was great in the way it played out. Robert Carlyle, I thought he played a wonderful villain as Renard. Underplayed it so that you didn't realise the twist was coming, and I think that worked. I think it worked very, very well. Christopher Jones, bit of stunt casting perhaps. Don't mind it too much. Anyone else in the role would have been similar, I guess. But I do prefer non-Americans as Bond girls, except for Tiffany Case. The music and the score were fantastic. Garbage, great title song. Desmond Llewellyn, the final for Q. I remember seeing the film the first time, and then a week later heard the news, went back to see it again, and that scene, it brings me to tears just thinking about it. Love the movie, love the podcast. Thanks, guys. Keep it up. Good to have you back, Chris. Can't wait for the next one. Cheers.
Hi, this is Matt from the Movie Seasons podcast, and I'm here to leave my 90-second review for The World Is Not Enough. Now, I watched this film a lot when it first came out. I remember buying the VHS and sitting there wearing it out because, well, DVDs just weren't a thing. So the fact is that I've got one big problem with this film, though, and it is Christmas Jones. Not the fact that Denise Richards plays her so much, just the character in general. I don't think she needs to be in the film at all. I mean, all she actually does is help James with the disarming of the nuclear bomb when it's in the pipeline. But they don't even disarm it, it blows up. And I think that by getting rid of her, I mean, yes, she's nice to look at, don't get me wrong, but if you got rid of her, I think it would make the relationship with Elektra seem a little bit more intense, and it would heighten the relationship that them two have, and it means that when Bond actually kills her at the end, you might feel a little bit more than you already do for him when he has to go through with that. And another thing is that the whole Renard being the henchman kind of thing, I think is a fresh good idea. I mean The Dark Knight Rises just copied it with Bane, but no, look, I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10, I think. All right, boys, keep up the good work. See you later.
Ah, yes, James Bond radio. Interesting thing. Listened to a podcast the other day. Know all about me, know about my shoulder, know exactly what hurt me. Drop the act, guys. Okay, Chris? I know you want to be back in the podcast. There's no point, okay? After all, there's no point in podcasting if you can't feel alive. Isn't that your motto? Isn't that exactly your words? No, I like The World Is Not Enough. It's got a good story. It's a good script. And I think it was quite personal, the band this time, rather than him kind of just being Rambo and running around with a gun with Tomorrow Never Dies, where I'd sort of said, give me stuff to do, I'm an actor. So yeah, I like it. It's obviously, it's not GoldenEye, which is really the only one I remember, even though that might be a golden lie told after the event. But I think, I got half of it right. I got a good director with Michael Apted. I think we had a good film there in The World Is Not Enough. Pierce, Tim here, just in the background, just listening to that. You know what the problem is with The World Is Not Enough? It's that it's ultimately a pastiche. You know, it's got bits of grit, Pierce, but he didn't go all the way. And above all, it's not a Dalton film, it's a you film. You had to own it a bit more. But well done on what you did try to do. Let's have a pint.
Hello, Agent Bootle here with my 90-second review of Bond 19, The World Is Not Enough. Brosnan's third outing. His Goldfinger, his Spy Who Loved Me, his Skyfall. Well, I can remember this film coming out like it was yesterday, and it was really well received at the time. But it isn't a go-to Bond film for me now, so it's been quite a while since I last watched it. So what did I think? The Good. It is a great title. Pierce looks rad all the way through. He's really well dressed. Loads of Sir Roger-style innuendo. Dr. Molly Warmflash is great. But let's just skirt that issue. It's the last we see of Desmond as Q, which is sad, but he does give Bond the greatest gadget in the series, the X-ray specs. And Robbie Coltrane is great as Valentine Siskowski, Nina, and Barushka. And Sophie Marceau is stunning as Electra King. They're not so good, not much really. Reynard just isn't as strong as I'd like as a villain. But my only real criticism for the film is Denise Richards as Dr. Christmas Jones. Enough said, I'm sure other people will bring that up. Oh, and that end submarine fight. Some of the physics are a little bit questionable, but it does give us 10 minutes of wet t-shirt. So all is forgiven, Denise. In summary, a sound mid-ranking Bond film, defo on the fantastical side, and I think this film, its success created the environment that resulted in Bond 20, Die Another Day. So you've got to ask yourself the question, who's afraid now, Mr. Bond?
Hi there, this is Darren calling from Southampton with my World Is Not Enough 90-second review. Just a few thoughts really, and the opening sequence particularly pleasing to me at the time. London hadn't been seen that much in Bond films, so for a whole sequence was particularly pleasing. Obviously that's been dampened down a bit with Skyfall and Spectre having a lot of London stuff, but at the time it was pretty exciting, and I love how Pierce threw himself into that opening sequence, or the stunt work on the boats. In the whole film, really, the action pieces they're just satisfying. They meet the criteria. I enjoyed the opening sequence. To say Zukovsky's caviar factory as well, getting carved up is a good section. But this is the film I remember. Pierce Brosnan. That's when I felt like he started to concern me in the role. The cracks started to appear. I just didn't feel he had the acting chops for delivering the sort of material that he wanted to do. More emotional Bond just doesn't quite work for me. On the reverse side, Sophie Marceau is an absolute triumph, absolutely beautiful. There is definitely something about French actresses, and she just absolutely delivers every section of it. I won't say too much about Denise Richards. I think it's all been said before, but I think Catherine Zeta-Jones would have been ideal as a replacement. But just want to say welcome back, Chris. Look forward to Die Another Day. And Tom, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And to everyone out there, enjoy the run-up to No Time to Die. See you later.
Hello, this is Richard Overall. When I first saw The World Is Not Enough, I was very impressed, and it finally helped me get over losing Timothy Dalton. Each of the Brosnan films have taken a step up. Tomorrow Never Dies had shed the eggy self-awareness and inexcusable music of Goldeneye, and this one gave us the first truly believable character since Sanchez. The only problem with Electra King is that she's so good she makes us feel bad for the rest. Christmas Jones feels like she's from a different film, and it's weird when they're briefly in the same room together. That said, on her own terms, she's light and likeable, and she's not in the film enough to destroy it, which is more than can be said for Halle Berry or Jonathan Pryce or Toby Stevens or Eric Serra. Likewise, there's nothing wrong with Robert Carlyle's Renard other than he's not Electra King. Perhaps we should think of him as a good henchman rather than a weak villain. I like the tone of the film. There's just enough weight for us to take the drama seriously without it getting self-important or boring, which is a hard balance to strike. On top of that, we have a theme tune, which includes the title of the film and isn't fully incorporated into the score, and that hasn't happened since. While the dramatic scenes are of the highest calibre in years, with Electra King's death one of the best moments in all of Bond, complete with an elegant play on words, the action is a bit lumbering. The boat chase gets away with it through sheer force of location, and the pipeline is gripping, but the rest is just a bit stagey and pedestrian, and whilst that's preferable to the other extreme, it does take the shine off what is otherwise the best Bond film of the decade, and I came out of the cinema thinking, I cannot wait for the next one.
Hello, JBR listener Chris Green here. I remember the run-up to Twine very well. Of course, it was also the run-up to the new millennium. And as someone who lived in London A very, very exciting time with the Millennium Dome, of course, and lots of things going on. I think Twine was also one of the last Bond films that didn't suffer from what we suffer from today, which is the rise of the internet and, of course, all of the leaks and spoilers that we have to endure. So I think the plot was kept pretty well under wraps. A great surprise in the film to find out that Elektra was in fact the baddie. Something glossed over in the trailer when Bond says he has M, which was of course changed to she has M in the film. I'm going to be bold and say this is actually one of my favourite, or my favourite Pierce film. Great soundtrack, some lovely locations, some nice set pieces, and just a load of fun. Great stuff.
Hey JBR, this is Logan from Kentucky calling in with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. This seems to be the Brosnan film that I find myself watching most often, and I attribute that to a handful of just really cool moments, most notably the pre-title sequence, which I feel like is a series standout. The increased screen time and bigger role for Judi Dench as M is a real highlight for me. M being in the field and in danger was such a cool plot point. It was new at the time. We hadn't really seen that before. I think history will remember Judi Dench very favorably in the series, and we'll realize we were very lucky to have her. As was discussed at length, Renard seems to be where the film kind of drags down a bit. And while it would have robbed the plot of the bait and switch element, I do feel like he could have been an all-time great henchman if they had just gone all in on the henchman role rather than some sort of hybrid dual villain. Anyway, love the film, love the podcast. Keep up the great work, guys.
Hi, Tom and Chris. Mike Connors calling in from Station M, Minnesota, United States. First off, just wanted to say it is great to have both Tom and Chris back together again. Second, I normally like to rewatch the films as you review it, but this time I couldn't find the time. But it doesn't really matter because this is definitely one of my top 2 or 3 Bond films. I'm kind of more into the lighthearted Bonds, so like Sir Raj and Pierce are definitely tied for my favorite Bonds, and this one's in my top 3, like I said. I think one of the biggest reasons for that is the pre-titles. It's the best one in the series by far. The scene in the banker's office is so cool, and the boat chase is totally epic. And like we get to see so much of London, which I feel like we don't get to see enough in some of the Bond movies. And I love all the dialogue in the MI6 building, like with Bond, King, and M. It's great. I love when Pierce touches the ice cubes and realizes what's going on. And he's like, King, the money. And he takes off before M even has a chance to call. And she's like, Moneypenny, stop, King. I just think that's so cool, and the stakes are so high. The pre-titles are good enough to be just a standalone movie, in my opinion. Like sometimes if I don't have time to watch a whole Bond movie, I'll just sit down and watch The World Is Not Enough pre-titles, and it never gets old. Anyway, glad that you guys are both back in action together again, and I'm looking forward to the rest of your No Time to Die coverage. Have a good one.
Hello guys, it's David West here. I absolutely loved hearing your review of Twine, and just for me, I have to say, I bloody love The World Is Not Enough. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It was the first one I saw in the cinema at the age of 9. I'd seen a couple of the Roger Moore films, and then when I saw The World Is Not Enough, I was just blown away. And since then, I was just became a massive super fan after that. I love all the characters. I love Elektra King, as Tom says. Goodness gracious me. I love Zukovsky as well. The return of him's brilliant. And I love Christmas Jones. I don't care what anyone says. I don't think she's supposed to be taken that seriously. And I think it adds to the camp value of the film, and it's bloody good. The David Arnold score is one of his best as well. And I'm not sure how many people are going to bring this up. I also love the N64 game, and I've just been revisiting that as well. So you guys might want to check that out in the future. But keep up the great work, guys. Absolutely love the podcast. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye.
Hi, this is John, and this is my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. There's much to enjoy in this film, but it does feel like there's a few missed opportunities. I'll start with the positives. The boat chase is great, although the tie straining is a bit daft. Pierce delivers with pretty ordinary material. He's a real class act. Judi Dench, first time we've seen her in a really developed performance, which really signals where her character goes in later films. The music, David Arnold totally cracks it again. Elektra, for me, delivers or should I say Sophie Marceau delivers one of the greatest performances of the series. She's complex, stroke fucked up in the head, genuinely narcissistic, which is terrifying, beautiful, seductive, and totally disposable of other people. Amazing performance. Negatives, Renard, after all the build-up of a man who feels no pain, he doesn't seem to amount to much of a threat. He's a physically small presence on screen, which is weird for Robert Carlyle, as he's a great actor. Valentin Zukovsky. This is a strange one for me. In GoldenEye, he was sharp, witty, threatening, on a par with other lovable rogues of the series. But here he seems to be played for pure laughs. The line about the insurance company always makes me cringe. It's like something from a pantomime. And then the less said about Christmas Jones, the better. This is a totally watchable film, which touches on greatness at times, but just falls a teeny weeny bit short. But as I say, still really enjoyable. Thanks all.
So, the 19th Bond adventure. Well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me, this one. I think it's a solid entry with a lot of potential, but overall it's a bit underwhelming. I think it's very confused in tone. I think the plot is a bit convoluted. Renard is quite underused. I think the finale is a little bit sketchy. And as for that band, James Bond, oh, I really do not like that at all. However, tons of positives. I think the pre-title sequence is one of the finest in the series. Definitely a top 3 for me in that respect. I think Desmond Llewellyn, with his final poignant performance as Q, is exceptional. I think Pierce is on magnificent form as Bond. I think it's Pierce's finest moment, really, as Bond. Certainly his best performance. Sophie Marceau, oh, what a Bond girl. Yeah, big fan of Sophie. Samantha Bond excels as usual, and their chemistry with Pierce is brilliant. I think the skiing sequences are excellent. I think the death of Electra is really well executed. My favourite Tanner, Michael Kitchen, on top form. Overall, I think it's a good entry, but it's not the best. The name's Dobson, Brian Dobson. See you soon.
Guys, it's Tom Ryan here from Ireland, just calling in with my review for The World Is Not Enough. I want to start off by saying big thanks to Chris for coming back. The last 3 episodes have been so much fun to listen to, and it was such a great surprise. This is now my 14th attempt at trying to record this message, and I hope this is the one that sticks. The reason I'm having such trouble with this is I just cannot describe how much I love this movie in 90 seconds or less. It's one of my all-time favorites. Cliff Notes version, the bloody pre-titles is absolutely fantastic. The theme tune is brilliant. I love both of the Bond girls. I think that Electra is such a fantastic villain. Christmas Jones is a lot of fun. I don't know why everyone complains about her. The Brosnan movies, I suppose, a lot of people talk crap about them these days, and I don't understand why. I absolutely adore them. I think that they have tried to have their cake and eat it. You get a lot of hints of dramatic complexity in Electra's storyline. I think Christmas Jones represents the real over-the-top fun side of Bond, the kind of campy side of Bond, and the whole thing is tied together perfectly by Pierce Brosnan. He can just manage that tone like nobody else. I think it's a 10 out of 10 film from start to finish. I have 5 seconds left. Oh my God, I'm only getting started. I love it. Thank you.
Hey Tom, hey Chris, it's Steve Spring from Northampton leaving my 90-second review for The World Is Not Enough. It's the first Bond I saw at the cinema, and it's actually always been one of my least favourites. It's actually crept below Die Another Day in recent years, which is shocking, I know. I can't believe I'm saying that myself. I've always found the action quite bland, and I always kind of get bored watching this film. I think Pierce tries too hard to act in it and kind of ends up looking in pain for most of the film. I always found him best when he's trying to be a bit like Roger Moore and having more fun on the screen. I think I do like Electra. I think she's one of the best Bond girls, and I do think Christmas Jones is horribly miscast. But in recent watch, I don't think Denise Richards is as bad as I remember. but I do think a more believable actress might have improved the film. I did actually watch it recently, and I did enjoy it more in my most recent watch. I was shocked, to be fair, to get an hour in and still it hadn't really fallen away. I'm going to save my next watch for a while because I feel quite positive about it still at the moment, which I don't normally. It's great to have Chris back for the reviews because my OCD just couldn't cope without having a full collection of reviews from you both. And we've now only got 2 months until a new Bond film, so this really is no time to die. Bye.
Hello, my name is Lorenzo Granger, and this is my thoughts on The World Is Not Enough. In my opinion, The World Is Not Enough is one of my favorite Bond films in the series. There's a lot of things I like. I like David Arnold's soundtrack score in the film, one of my favorite soundtrack score. I love the pre-title sequence boat chases, one of my favorite action sequences in the film. I love the speed chase sequence with the Parahawks and Bond and Electra. That's a great action sequence. Electric King, she's one of my favorite female villains in the movie. She's fantastic and great. Renard is a very interesting character, but very underused. I really do love and enjoy this film so much. The World Is Not Enough. Always gonna hold a better place in my heart because I love this film a lot. It's one of the best.
Hi, Tom, Chris, Jack, Brian, Dan, John. This is Brett Vanderberg calling from Hamburg with my Twine review. I don't like being negative about Bond, but this is the only one I don't really like. I don't like the action doesn't land with me. The locations are not memorable. The biggest thing is the tone being all over the place. It's worse here than in the other Brosnans, I think. As one example, the avalanche jacket, it's a ridiculous gadget. That's all fine. And it's going to be used, and you can assume it's going to be used, and Bond will be with a lady inside. And then you would make another assumption about how that scene would go. But instead of having some silly romantic moment, it's a big melodramatic moment with "look into my eyes," and it's just not right. They haven't got Bond right there. It's a silly gadget. You can't use it for this melodrama. If you can imagine if Roger had found VJ dead and said no more problems, and he was still wearing the alligator submarine, that might be perversely brilliant actually, but it wouldn't be really right. So it's just that kind of thing. Unfortunately, this is just the only one I don't really like, and that includes the next one, which I look forward to reviewing soon. Bye bye.
The world is not enough. Well, actually, this film really isn't enough. This is Philip Latchford with my review of The World Is Not Enough. Now, the opening of the film is absolutely fantastic. There's a great gun barrel centering on Bilbao. The little sequence there. You've got the bloke out of Minder and the cigar girl, the mysterious cigar girl. And then over to London, some bloke out of I don't know, was he in Casualty or something? Oh no. And then the boat chase, which is amazing, fantastic, great use of London, going up and down, weaving backwards and forwards into Docklands, fantastic. And then the Millennium Dome, it was so exciting at that time. And then the title sequence is so-so, and the song is, well, it's okay, but at least it's in the soundtrack, unlike the last film. And then Scotland, that's good. Poor old Q. Sad. He seemed to know something was going to happen to him, didn't he, Desmond? And then the plot. And, okay, Sophie Marceau is good, but the Lara Croft impression's not very good. And Robert Carlyle, well, he just isn't enough, is he? He's just not enough.
Hey guys, it's Jeff Silence with my 90-second review of The World Is Not Enough. This, believe it or not, is my favorite Brosnan film. I know most fans say GoldenEye is Brosnan's best, and they may be right, but this one has a special place in my heart. Sophie Marceau is brilliant as Electra King. I remember naming her as that special Bond girl during the interview I had with you guys a while back. Still would go for it, knowing she would probably kill me afterwards, but hey. I'm also a fan of the title song. I was a huge Garbage fan when I was a teenager, and still have a crush on Shirley Manson. And yeah, okay, I'd have to knock it for Christmas Jones, Nuclear Scientists. Okay, Denise Richards was not good for the role, but I have to wonder if any actor would have pulled it off. Admittedly, a lot of her lines are pretty cringeworthy anyway. And I'll never forget the audience reaction on the Christmas Comes Once a Year line. When I saw that in the movie theater, half of the audience groaned, the other half burst out laughing. I mean, I saw it with my best friend Sean, and we both loved it. I mean, granted, we were both 17 when we saw it, but we loved it all the same. Anywho, that's my review. Keep up the great work, guys, and it's great to hear from Chris again.
Can't you just say hello like a normal person? This is Agent Marlene, Double Earth cabling in. The World Is Not Enough has a special place in my heart. It has always been neck on neck for the spot of my favorite Brosnan Bond, together with Tomorrow Never Dies. Where do I begin? I love myself a good chase, and this movie has really quite a few of them. The boat chase in the pre-titles along the Thames, the pipeline chase, if that counts as a chase, I guess it's a race against the clock, and the ski chase. By the way, how good is Ice Bandit? It's definitely one of my favorite Bond action tracks, and it's on all my running playlists. I love the Q scene in MI6 of Scotland headquarters. Something I said? No! Something you destroyed! I mean, was Q ever going to spend his retirement on a tiny boat armed to its teeth? But anyway, I just love Q, and the two leading ladies, Sophie Marceau is a superb villainess, and as for Christmas, is this the performance of a lifetime for Denise Richards? No. But hey ho, it's a comic character like Zukovsky, and to be honest, I don't mind the silly names at all. Dr. Christmas Jones, Molly Warmflash, this just makes me laugh. Anyway, the movie is so enjoyable to watch, and watching it back, there were so many times when I thought, this is why I love James Bond. So, an amazing movie.
Hi, it's Doug Thompson here, all the way from Christchurch, New Zealand, here to give my 90-second The World Is Not Enough review. I absolutely love this film. It's my second favourite of the Brosnan era, second only to GoldenEye. I still love GoldenEye, it's one of my favourite films. I think this is Brosnan's best performance, though. He appears to be super comfortable in the role, and you can tell that he's having fun. He oozes coolness, especially in the banker scene and the casino scene. I love the casino scene. This film has some really cool action set pieces, some not so much, in my opinion. I love the boat chase, and I love the sort of battle at the caviar factory with helicopter and the blades. Really, really awesome. Another standout thing in this film is the score. I think David Arnold's done a cracking job of mixing technical or techno music with the classical sort of Bond elements. It's, the La La Land expanded score is such a great listen. The casting in this film, I think, is a little bit mixed. You've got standouts like Judi Dench and Sophie Marceau. I think Robert Carlyle was great as Renard. It's just a shame they didn't give him something a bit more menacing. Like, he kind of feels like a threat for a start, but then not so much near the end. Denise Richards, well, enough said. But, when you were 16, going to see it for the first time, she was super great. Okay, that's all. Thanks, bye!
Hi guys, this is Calvin Dyson calling in to absolutely gush over The World Is Not Enough, the single most underrated Bond film of them all, to my mind. We have a Bond at the absolute peak of his powers here with Pierce Brosnan, but also Sophie Marceau, and you guys covered this, but just what they do with Elektra King, having the Bond girl also be the big bad of the film seems like such a no-brainer, and yet it took 19 films to get to this point, and I think it's interesting because it pushes Bond into emotional places regarding the villain that we've never seen him in before, and that's exciting. Just like M being kidnapped was so exciting, and MI6 being attacked at the very start of the film is it makes The World Is Not Enough feel like something more than just another mission. It feels like a huge escalation in personal stakes for Bond, and I think that's the main reason why it works so well. I could go on for hours about all the things I absolutely love about this film. The David Arnold score is just my favorite, and all the action sequences are terrific. I love Robbie Coltrane coming back, but time is short, so I just have to say that it took me 20 years to get to this point. But Denise Richards, actually don't think she's that bad anymore, and I wouldn't want anyone else in this role. I think she's kind of iconic in it, even if not necessarily for the best of reasons, but I love her nonetheless. I wouldn't want anyone else in this role, and who knows, maybe in 20 years more people will agree with me, but I won't count on that. Keep up the great work, guys. Bye.
The world is not enough. Foolish sentiment or family motto. Either way, I can't get enough of this movie. I think The World Is Not Enough is one of the most underrated entries in the series. I think it's right up there with GoldenEye as Pierce Brosnan's best. The plot, I think, is fantastic. There's lots of different subtleties written into it and twists and turns. I think it's just a really solid plot. There's lots of humor, but there's also some really dark moments. I love the nice balance between the two. Brosnan is totally on point. He looks great, and he has some really funny scenes, but also brutal scenes, and I just love that balance. All the supporting characters I think are great. I love seeing Zukovsky again. Electra King is one of the best villains in the series. And I love Christmas Jones. I have no problem with her. It's never bothered me with people complain about her acting, and I have no problem. I think she's great. The score is fantastic. The action scene, the boat chase, is easily the best in the series. And I love what some of the things they take the action scenes and make them really unique that we don't see in other Bond movies. And then the torture scene at the end is probably one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. So definitely, I love this movie. It's one I go back to time and time again, and it's right up there with the best.
Hello, this is Ian Davis calling from Suffolk in England with my review on The World Is Not Enough. I'll start by saying that until recently, I hadn't rewatched this film for years. It certainly isn't a favourite of mine. Pierce looks great as Bond. Denise Richards really doesn't fit into this film. And whilst I've always regarded Renard as the main villain, Robert Carlyle's portrayal doesn't come across either as menacing nor memorable. Sophie Marceau does save their team though. She's wonderful as Electra. However, like Renard, not a particularly memorable character. I like the pre-credits, in fact watched some of the filming on the Thames. However, I really don't get the Q-boat land-based stuff. Pretty stupid in my opinion, and extends the sequence beyond reason. In Skyfall, I wasn't keen on M's involvement out in the battle zone as it were, though in this film it's acceptable to me, and it works okay. The music is great. I like all of David Arnold's Bond scores. What really lets the film down for me is its lack of punch. Bond navigates through the 2 hours or so, and although the action set pieces flow nicely, have energy and are very well put together, I didn't feel that Bond was under any threat. The film for me sits in the bottom 6.
JBR, this is Paul from Station C, Canada, with my review for The World Is Not Enough. The 14-minute pre-title sequence is cool, especially in Bilbao, and Brosnan's blunt, "I never miss," to Electra King is a pure Fleming moment. Dench, as always, is a compelling matriarch. Denise Richards, flabbergastingly cast as a nuclear physicist, can do little more than look confused in a heaving tank top, and the oil stops pumping as soon as she arrives mid-film. Renard may not be able to feel, but at least he can act. The World Is Not Enough comes in at number 20 on my Bond rankings. Thank you.
Hello JBR, this is Benjamin Clough from Dunedin, New Zealand, NZ branch. Now, The World Is Not Enough is my favourite Brosnan film. I think GoldenEye is probably his best movie, but this one's my favourite one. I find it one of the easiest Bond films to just switch on and watch at any time. You've got to be in the right mood for Casino Royale, or you've got to be in the right mood for Moonraker, but I could watch this any time. I think it has the best David Arnold score, and probably right up there with On Her Majesty's Secret Service and For Your Eyes Only as far as soundtracks go. I would thoroughly encourage you to go out and listen to Pipeline and Submarine again. I think Brosnan looks the best here, and I have no problems with Denise Richards. I'm happy with her casting, and I'm happy with her performance. Though I do agree Renard could have been given a bit more to do. I think this film is one of the first Bond films I usually show my mates, just because it's a good lead-in to the more fantasy, outlandish Bond films, which are my favourite. And above all, I think this movie captures a happier time. It seems less self-aware, less cynical, and less serious as the ones that come after that. And I kind of wish after Craig we kind of recaptured this sort of feel again. It's great to have you back, Chris. You really made my week, really made my year finding out that you're back. All right. God bless. Bye.
Agent Barrett calling in from California. The world is not enough. Ironically, it feels like this movie is not enough. It certainly left me wanting. I remember watching it in the movie theaters when it first came out, and the pre-credit sequence received a rapturous round of applause, and it felt like we were going to see something special. The rest of the movie, particularly the back third of the film, lets it down significantly. I know at the time there was critical consensus, especially coming off of Tomorrow Never Dies and Goldeneye, that Pierce Brosnan may be the best Bond since Sean Connery. It's interesting to note now how his stock seems to have lowered at the same time that Lazenby and particularly Timothy Dalton's stock has risen. I remember myself thinking at the time that Brosnan reminded me of Connery, but on viewing this film in the last couple of weeks, he reminded me a lot more of some of the worst excesses of Roger Moore. The biggest missed opportunity of this film for me is Sophie Marceau. I thought she was quite mesmerizing, and it's almost like she's in a different movie. There's a Shakespearean tragedy attached to her betrayal of Bond, and it's some of Brosnan's finest acting. Alongside her, together as a partnership, it feels like they're in a different movie compared to the rest of the cartoonish, over-the-top, frankly bananas ending this movie has. Overall, The World Is Not Enough. It's okay, but it was the start of a decline.
Hi everyone, this is Fraser Lockley. Here's my 19-second review for The World Is Not Enough. Really enjoyed this one. Right up there with some of the best sequences in Bond. Really enjoyed the pre-title sequence. I know it's a long one, but yeah, we don't mind that. Good to see Bond in a slightly weakened position by not knowing who the enemy really is. Great to see him back on skis. Bring back the skis. And yeah, I really enjoy this film. It rattles along, keeps you going. Yeah, it's a few dodgy bits. The car, for example, don't really understand what's the point of that. And but yeah, title theme, great. The title, The World Is Not Enough, really good. Great Fleming stuff. Anyway, guys, catch you later. Cheers.
All right, some interesting opinions there. I like that. Brosnan's a bit of a divider these days, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. When you come back, when you end with something like Die Another Day, and then you come back with something as magical as Casino Royale, and the update that Bond sorely needed, Casino Royale, as we've often said, it's easier for the dude that came before to take a bit of stick. And I feel like at the moment, Brosnan's in that bracket with a lot of fans where he's the one that takes a lot of stick, you know? And it must be said, I always fly my Brosnan flag loud and proud. He is my Bond from that key point of life, 13 years old when GoldenEye came out, that he just captures my imagination and I absolutely adore him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as the years go on, whereby, you know, give him another 10, 20 years. Maybe we're another Bond or two down the line. We're on to Bond number 7 or Bond number 8. And then it's like, let's look back at that and see where the times are these days compared to, you know, the 90s. Because again, it was a different time. It's, you know, what is it, 20 years ago? Exactly 20 years
That's
ago.
insane, isn't it?
21 years ago, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. 21 years ago. And you think of the difference between 21 years or 20 years before that.
Yeah.
When you got Moonraker.
Yeah.
And like the difference between Moonraker and The World's Not Enough. It's crazy, isn't it, when you think of it like that? But no, I found the listener reviews, obviously quite a few mentioned similar stuff that we were on about, particularly Electric King. Obviously, everyone seems to love Electric King, but rightly so. I mean, amazing character, absolutely brilliant character. Boat Chase as well came up quite a few times. That's obviously a good one, the pre-title sequence. So, yeah.
Beautiful stuff. All right, then. So, like we said last week, the birthday episode, the JBR's, what is it? How many birthdays is this? This is the sixth birthday
Blimey.
of JBR. So we'll be inviting some intrepid listeners onto the show to talk some Bond very soon. So keep your eyes peeled on the social medias for that. We'll be sending out some instructions very soon. And then, mate, once that's in the bag, it's going to be time to talk about No Time to Die, isn't it?
No, but how much am I going to be able to talk about it? I don't know. But
well, I suppose you can stay in the dark a little bit in the weeks leading up, and then the moment.
Once it's out, once we've seen it, it's gonna be full on. I think from everyone.
Stuff. All right then. So until next time, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright,
and James Bond Radio will return next week. We'll see you then, everybody.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.